This is the March 8th, 2022 meeting of the Harbor Management Commission's Mooring Committee at 5:30 p.m. And just in the nick of time.
I got 5:28.
All right. Bill Perugini has joined us.
You guys caused the problems already.
In the room we have Harbor Master LeClaire and Jeff Stedman, Kim Taylor, and I am Jack Hirschler. We have a flag, so we should do this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The first item on our agenda is the Harbor Master's report, and I had indicated a series. You can handle them however you'd like here in terms of questions.
Oh, sure. Do you
cover? Yeah, let me give it back to you to take a peek at. Also, we only have one microphone here. We don't have
That's exactly what I was
maybe.
Pat, can you hear me okay? It's Brian.
Yes, Brian. It's good to hear you. I haven't heard you in a month or so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Brian LeClaire, Harbor Master. I can give you an update. It's been a busy month, as you know, I could imagine, with the moorings. As of this afternoon, as you know, we have 82 moorings available for the public, exclusive of the North Anchorage 51 permits. Of those 82, 65 have been fully approved. 11 are pending approval. I call them partial approved. There's a few missing documents from various people. They can't find their registration. They've taken their safe boating classes, etc. They paid their money and are just missing documents, incomplete documents. I've indicated to all of them you don't get a permit, a sticker, until you have everything, obviously. Thus, we have 6 vacancies as of right now. Perry Green, 12, South Helix, 6 and 12, South Wall 3, South Wall 7, and West Wall 4. One vessel has requested an upgrade. That's at Mid-Wall 5. He's going from a 27 to a 34-foot sailboat. So I had a preliminary discussion with Travis when I was at the club this weekend. I'll get to that in a minute. About where, whether we can accommodate the boat that grew in size by 7 feet. Some thoughts about, and the answer is I think yes on his current.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Great.
We know we're losing 2 moorings because of the encroachment into the federal channel. That's the bad news. The good news is we have 6 available. The good news is we have 2 of those are South Helixes, which, as you know, are the large spots for big sailboats, and we have a number of big sailboats sitting at the top of our wait list if you look. The first one is a 35-foot powerboat, who coincidentally claims he's a fisherman as well, followed by a 42-foot sailboat, a 43-foot sailboat, another 43-foot sailboat, a couple of powerboats in their 20s, and then a 30-foot sailboat. So that's the good news. We'll be able to make some progress on that list. As to the wait list, right now we have 63 fully renewed, 8 partially renewed on the wait list. We have a number, 5 of them, for instance, renewed themselves but neglected to pay the money, so we're reaching out to them. And 3 of them are having system issues that I think we corrected today with online mooring. So there are 20 non-renewals of the wait list that I'm going to reach out to directly, manually this week. I had assumed that I send emails out to people. The system does it automatically. It's time to renew. It's 15 days. It's 30 days. It's, timing. That if emails came back as undeliverable, we would know about that. I just had online mooring confirm this week, no.
Oh.
We don't know when things are not deliverable. And I sent a follow-up tech request saying, all right, is there a way we can find out? I know from the Harbor Master email I'll get them back, because that's a town email, but not from online mooring. And they're looking to see if there's a way we can find out whether people are. Because one gentleman who, I think it was Mr. Henry, is on the waiting list, said, where are you sending these, by the way? And I look at the email. It's a random email, so I assume it's one he gave us and not a typo. But we would never know he's not getting these emails.
Right.
So we should So we're working on that to see if there's a way. But so now because of that, I'm going to manually send 20 emails out to the people we haven't heard from on the wait list and say, guys, what's up? And ladies, what's up? Just,
On your email.
On the Harbor Master email.
So you'll find out if they bounce.
Exactly. I'm not going to, because I've been emailing people through the website, which I can do, communications, because then it makes a permanent record, not on the town server, but on online, so you folks can all see.
Right.
Whenever I confirm, yes, I received that, thank you. I've been trying to do that to keep a good record of it. So we're getting there. As to priority moorings, of course we have a vessel upgrade. Midwalt 05. He got rid of his 27-foot. I think it's an Erickson. Got a 34, same make. In talking to Travis and the club, I think we can accommodate him on his existing mooring, which would be great by moving another one down. As to priorities, we have a commercial fisherman, Orville Christian Furlong, with his 27-foot fishing boat Sleuth that you are probably familiar with historically. As you know, under the rules, Rule 8, the harbor master shall, to the extent possible, give special consideration to finding mooring locations for vessels for licensed commercial fishing purposes. The rules also require the applicant meet certain requirements, including a current and valid state of Connecticut commercial fishing license, a vessel licensed for commercial fishing and equipped principally for commercial fishing. So what I've done, I reached out previously in January to the Connecticut Deep Marine Fisheries, and we've had a discussion with them. They have a very complicated set of rules as to what you're fishing for, as to what you need. But basically, a individual commercial licensed, perhaps licensed gear, also a licensed vessel for commercial fishing through them. I sent a letter at the end of December to Mr. Furlong to follow up in writing to a verbal conversation I had with him. I confirmed that he has an application submitted April 29th as a commercial fisherman on the wait list. I confirmed the records show he used to be at South Wall 13 and it was canceled in March of 2020 by the then harbor master, based upon his failure to maintain current and valid state of Connecticut commercial fishing license and failure to maintain deep fishing reports. I then told him his application references being a licensed commercial fishing vessel. I cited the rules as to what's required. And then I told him, upon the availability of a suitable location in the harbor, his application will be considered for priority approval based on his indication that he's a licensed commercial fishing vessel. However, he must satisfy the requirements of a current and valid state of Connecticut commercial fishing license, a vessel licensed for commercial fishing and equipped for commercial fishing, and proof of commercial use such as deep fishing reports, and on that basis he would be assigned one. I also cautioned him in the phone call that I'm going to be watching this during the season, and if in fact he has a licensed vessel and he has his personal license but doesn't actually use the boat for commercial fishing, by having the reports, I will not hesitate to revoke his mooring sometime during the season and order his boat removed from the harbor and give it to someone who is on the waiting list in chronological order. So, I'm going to reach out to him this weekend now that I know I have vacancies, telling him, are you prepared to accept a mooring? I'm going to need these documents before you get your sticker, and remind him again, he has to be a legitimate commercial fisherman to be fair to everyone he's jumping ahead of.
So we're removing South Wall 1 and 2.
Correct.
0 and 1, I think.
0
right?
and 1.
They're numbered.
Correct.
And we're going to move them potentially to 3 and 7 or rejigger the whole row. But the South Wall moorings that are showing as vacant are likely to not really be vacant because of relocations. Am I thinking about that right?
The South Wall or West Wall, we're going to look closely as to where their boats would best fit.
Okay,
but
of those 3 wall moorings that are vacant, 2 of them are going to be used to relocate.
That's correct. You are correct.
Way to think about that.
That's
right?
correct,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
So that would mean there's a wall mooring vacancy potentially for a commercial fishing vessel.
Correct.
Right. And then, as you mentioned, there's 2 helix moorings, the South Helix field, and then there's the Peregrine 12, which is going to be a very small power boat.
Correct.
Okay.
We have one additional individual looking for a mooring on a priority basis, and that would be the resident of 789 Harbor Road. He has a Rhodes 18 sailboat with a full keel. And based upon my review of the file, the entire file, I've gone through a large file, I've reviewed the charts, the nautical charts, and I've gone out there myself now. I've looked at photographs, and I actually was out there during the ice storm last Friday at low tide with a stick. Once I made it to the end of his dock at low tide, downhill, to determine that it's really not suitable for that vessel. So we will give him a mooring. And yet, we have to look at how that's going to fit into play as well here, because it's a small boat. And I was talking to Travis how we may be able to do that. So we're looking at that. There was one individual who contacted me requesting reinstatement to the wait list, Mr. Galpin. He was on the wait list for many years, apparently living out of state. He was offered a mooring, declined the mooring, deferred, declined again, let his position lapse, but now he's back in Connecticut. He wanted to get back where he used to be on the list, and I denied that request because that's really not, it's contrary to the rules as well as fundamental fairness. As you know, the buoy, we've had discussions regarding the buoy for the USGS. I followed up with Tim Bishop, just telling him the town of Fairfield representative needs to sign the DEEP application. If you want to designate me, I'll be glad to do that, because I'm going to issue a harbor master permit as well for that based upon my discussions we had with USGS. They're using Pequot as their vendor, so that solves my concern about this thing moving and how fast we can get it put away. And actually, Pequot Yacht Club made a recommendation for a larger mushroom than they had, and actually offered one of their surplus mushrooms to them. And USGS is fine with going with a heavier mushroom to keep the thing from moving, so that's going to be a good move.
Excuse me, are there two different permits then? You said the town of Fairfield permit and the harbor master? So
they have to get my permission because of where it is.
After they get the towns, or does yours come in?
I've told them already that based upon, my concern was basically this moving more than anything into the channel. Yeah, and it's not going to because of the size of the floats. And in fact, they indicated they've got a couple of whalers, but nowhere close, a 15, a 17, and maybe a 19, I think they told me, but not exactly close. And I said, you need a plan if this moves. We can't have the channel blocked by your very big, it's not just one it's two buoys and a central structure.
Oh, really?
We can't have the thing blocking the channel. And they noticed that Pequot had a hydraulic vessel for putting in moorings, and they've made arrangements, they're making arrangements to use them as their vendor for installation as well as emergency response. So I think that's going to solve our concerns.
But I think the question that Bill is asking is two separate.
Yeah.
Well, someone from the town has to sign off on the DEEP permit. And most of the time I'm told by USGS that the harbor master is designated by the town.
Right, it came up in the last meeting. Right?
Yeah, but Brenda has not done that, so I reached out to Tim Bishop again, the conservation director for the town, saying, coordinate with the first select woman. She could sign it, she could designate anyone. She's got to designate someone to sign this ultimately.
But even if she approves and it's put, then you have to approve.
I have to approve, but
right.
I don't have to sign off on the permit. I just have to give them an email or something confirming. I've given them a verbal on that. Much like someone just reached out to me this week on Fairfield Beach Road. He bought a house and he wants to put a mooring offshore, and he recognizes he needs a permit. We can't charge, it's out of the harbor management area, but he needs a harbor master permit
for
Fairfield.
Even though it's outside the purview of, oh, really?
Because the governor appointed me for Fairfield, any navigable waterway in Fairfield.
So on the creek?
If there's not for docks, but for moorings, because docks is deep jurisdiction.
Yeah. So the mooring would not be in Pine Creek, it would be...
This is along Fairfield Beach Road.
Interesting.
To the,
what number, out of curiosity?
I can look up in a
It's
second.
so shallow, yeah, so where I live.
He's planning on going, they sent a drawing, and they said they wanted to go 10 feet to the north of mean high tide. I said, well, that would seem to be on the sand. If you're going to the north, you may want to rethink how where you've drawn this. There's a high tide line in their shore side.
You mean south of...
I think so.
And they drew it backwards. I think the person who was helping him.
Even so.
10 feet's not very far.
But you go up there, depending on where you're at.
He thinks he's only going to be in
1,100 block. I mean, it's very shallow. I mean, it's probably a little skiff. I mean, I'd be curious.
It's a 20-foot powerboat, and he's planning on putting it in. It sounds like it may not be enough water. We have to be a little clear here. I said I'm not sure where you're trying to put this. I know you have he's proposing one of the triangle moorings.
From 700
Spherical, but a
1,200
500-pound one.
at low tide, you could probably go 100 yards out.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
you gotta go
I don't think
way,
he's thought that well, unless he wants the boat to sit on the
Could be, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe.
mud. That's,
And then
it's a small power boat. They do that, right?
Yeah.
In some of the towns out there, and, Dennis, I know I've seen that. So we're following up with that, but, so that's right, so that's why I would have jurisdiction
Got
over
it.
that. And the Deep had told me, they said, you have to take care of Fairfield. We don't have the boat to do it, and we don't do it. So when you have a chance, go out there and look around and run some numbers if there's a lot of boats, and you can work on getting those permits. And if you see anything that looks wrong, like there's a dock that we should know about, that we don't know about, someone's building a dock without us knowing, let us know, give us a call. So
So I would presume you would have jurisdiction over Pine Creek as well, and then Ash Creek as
that's
well?
interesting. Is that navigable? I was thinking about it.
Oh, absolutely.
At high tide it is.
At high tide, it's
Yeah.
navigable. So for mooring,
All of them are.
Yeah,
so and
Ash Creek too, because that's
Right.
South Benson Marina.
Pine Creek. I'm sorry, Pine Creek and Ash Creek. Yes, for
Yeah.
moorings.
Yeah,
And if there's docks, that's a whole different issue we could talk about, because that's become somewhat of an interesting discussion topic recently regarding that.
But it wasn't defined with the whole plan, because that's not a federal.
Well,
Right,
no,
well,
that's a
the
different.
commission doesn't have that jurisdiction.
Right.
And
But
Well, it
Pat,
doesn't, a federal guy.
Pat-
We don't, but he does.
he does.
Yeah, he's kind of a big deal.
He's a-
Clearly.
But there's been some interesting discussion.
Yeah.
There's the case, we talked about on Friday, whether the Deep has to, even listen to a harbor management commission that has a concern
Oh,
over a dock or not. And
Yeah.
this comes up in Norwalk with the bridge, I forget the name of the bridge they're replacing. It's got that funny name, the Walk Bridge.
Oh, right.
Walk Bridge, I think it is, yeah. And there's some interesting issues with that. So I'll finish up and then we'll come back to. So that's something we're looking at. So we also had a meeting Thursday out there with USGS because they wanted to put additional monitoring in the commission's jurisdiction, both on the dock at Pequot and out at Pequot Avenue on the bridge, which falls within this commission's jurisdiction. And they had some good plans and very good discussions, I think, with Kim.
The last I had heard about, because I wasn't at that meeting, it wasn't clear whether what they're planning to do on where Southport Beach Bridge is, was that going to be in Westport or was it going to be in our?
It sounds like they want to do it on the Fairfield
No,
side of the bridge.
It's gonna be on the Fairfield
So
side of
it'll
the
be in
bridge.
our, clearly
It's
that's.
within our jurisdiction.
Yep.
And you've got the
It's gonna
drawing.
be, I was out there with them on
Yeah.
whatever day,
Thursday.
and it's right under the bridge, right up against some of the rocks, and it's probably gonna be bolted to some of the rocks, so it can't be
It's
moved.
like a 4-inch tube, basically, it's not going to be as elaborate as the one
Gonna be
outside.
under the bridge?
Mhm.
Because we still have kids jumping off that bridge.
Right, but it's.
Kim brought that
they're
topic
gonna-
up exactly.
They're gonna secure it in a way that it can't be moved unless you're able to pick up
Okay.
very heavy, very big.
And this is something they're going to go out there every week or two and manually dip it and then enter the data so it'll be on the website, but it won't be live data as we're used to.
So manually.
And there's one in Pequot. They were proposing one at the dock between the piling and the U. And Kim had offered by her boat at the end of the dock for the equipment because they need a battery for that device. And the club was very accommodating in running conduits and what they needed for their battery and their solar panel to make that one work. And that's another monitored device.
And we'll have the technical, the gal who's in charge of all of this at the meeting on next Tuesday. And they put together a 3-page position paper, which is interesting, so that'll be distributed to the commissioners as part of with the minutes, with the agenda. And then she'll be available for questions.
So let me make sure I got, so there's the one we've been talking about, which is the big thing that sits offshore. There's something at PYC that's two of them at
PYC and one under the,
and one at Southport,
Yeah.
Southport
Yeah.
Beach Bridge, okay, Sasko
Yeah.
Creek, okay. Just want to get my minutes right, okay.
I can tell you what that address was if you want that, and give me a second. There, it's,
And USGS
Here we go.
knows that they also have to contact the town's Public Works Department because they'd be doing something on a town bridge. Mr. Hurley hasn't heard yet from the USGS.
1157 Fairfield Beach Road, to answer your
yeah,
question.
that's right, yeah.
Yeah. It's shallow. That's why I said,
Yeah.
I think you have
About
to do a little.
100 yards out, I mean, low tide.
And then mooring inspections. I went to the club Saturday while I was out there to check on something. I was chatting with Travis. They've got the moorings pulled, and before they put them in for the north anchorage, I have to inspect them. And we went through them all. I did an initial inspection of the moorings, the chains, the buoys, the lines, etc., the tackle. And they had a yellow tagged as to what's going to be replaced, and they have a rather conservative replacement schedule, it appears, on what shackles they're actually welding on, rather than letting them get too thin. They have a very organized system as well as to trying to put them back where they came from in the harbor, as you know, with your boat. That's why sometimes you wonder, why is it adjusted just right? It's because that was your line from last year that they left there. So things look good for them. They're going to have to start putting them in soon, our moorings, because last year they started, I think, right around March 13th to get them all in by April. It took them about a month to get them in, so they're going to kick it up now, get going on that. And that was it.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So going back to the beginning of your report about the vacant moorings, so it's, I don't know who's going to get offered, but it would be important to let folks know if we're likely going to be offering them a mooring, because they'll have to make other arrangements for their boats. So what's the thinking?
I was planning on that this week, exactly. I had that same thought. Now that I know definitely who's back and what's available, I'm going to warn the folks and say, hey, you may be coming up. It's looking pretty good. Some of the folks by the top we've been emailing already. They know they're there, and they say, what do you think, Brian? Should I be?
So they look like they're not going to ask for strike one. They're going to probably take it.
I think they would.
Okay.
And the folks have been watching, because some of them don't know if they're quite. The only one who may ask for strike one is Mr. Breyer. He has Amy Breyer. He has a 35-foot Everglades power boat, which I have to check with him the measurements, because I know his engines are off the back of it. I don't know how they measure power boats, the new power boats like that. If a 35 is bow to stern or bow to the furthest engine, if he kicks him up when he comes in.
That's what they do now, right? With the outboards, it's to the furthest.
They add that. Yeah.
Right.
When they're down or when they're up. I don't. Well,
when they're up.
That's because they measure.
Right. That's right.
Because South Bench mentions, because my little 22-foot Catalina was 2311 when they measured me at South Bench, and because my bow pulpits and the engines stick out a little bit, and they drop.
Right.
And that matters for us because we have moorings bow to stern, so we can't. If he's 35 feet, 5-foot engine.
Because that's the idea of having an outboard, so it's up. So
that's 5 feet.
Right.
So we have to be careful of that. But he indicated when I spoke to him, he may be deferring a year on it. So I'm going to have to follow up with him on that. Yeah. Or deferring, not a year, deferring until there's next one available, which may not be next year. We don't know. Hopefully. But
and that guy who was, I think, number 6, we're not going to get to him this year. Then
it sounds like no. I think
he hadn't paid you. We had this change off.
That's right. That's Mr. Kinney.
Yeah, I don't want him to lose his spot when he's number 6.
Oh man, no.
No.
Okay, so
we're probably going to get to. I think we're going to get Marbella, which is Mr. Cargill, and Emily, which is Mr. Dumpke, 42 and 43 foot respectively.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to get
those will be South Helix 6 and 12. Perry Green 12, if memory serves, that's going to be pretty shallow, and the at least Parks and Rec doesn't put anything bigger than 18 or 20 feet in there. So it's a small power boat.
I've got to find room for 789. Hopefully this year, if I can. I mean, I can't put that little boat like that at the Helixes, so we have to find a spot. And I'm going to be meeting with Justin as well to talk about Perry's Green and.
PG 12 would not support a sailboat with a
12 is the furthest south one, right?
No, north.
The north. The north.
Is there a sailboat? Is there a sailboat?
The low numbers on here. We're looking at the graph. The low numbers.
There is a sailboat on Perry's Green already.
These are the low numbers here.
There was. Wasn't there one like 2 years ago?
I don't know what kind of a keel it really has on it.
It was on the mud most of the time.
Was it? It was like a 20-something foot boat.
12 is here. At this end.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And one doesn't exist anymore, so the first one really is, it looks like 3, number 3.
12 is?
Way almost at the end.
Yeah.
None of the numbers are the order you think. I finally have got my arms around your number, and whoever came up with the numbering originally wasn't you.
Okay.
But, yes. So
other questions on the Harbor Master Report, Jeff?
A couple things. Who will own the tackle that the USGS buoy is anchored to?
So we had that discussion Thursday. I brought that up because I wanted to talk to them about the weight they were using, and while Jeff was on the phone from the club and Travis was live at this meeting with Kim and myself, 3 people from USGS. You might have left by that point at some point. And I inquired to them about the weight, and They were using, I think they had recommended a 150, and the folks in the club thought that they're better off going 250, 300 for each one of those. Offered, they may even have them. The USGS said they would buy whatever they need to buy, whatever, they would go with the club's recommendations since they know what holds in that area best from the moorings that we have out there already. And they said, we'll defer to you because we don't know, other than anecdotally, what they have in Massachusetts in one of the, Rhode Island, rather, it was.
Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, where the washing machine, they called it.
They called it the washing machine, and they said they only run whatever.
So they would pay for it, but who would own them? This was Jeff's question.
Well, they would, I'm sorry to answer the question. So if they were to buy those moorings, it would be their moorings.
Is there a provision that we have to waive in the rules then? But isn't the provision that the Harbor Commission will own all the tackle?
Except for the North Anchorage
Except for the
commercial.
North Anchorage.
Is this tackle when it's for a buoy? Is that different than a mooring?
It's tackle.
Tackle is
It's the same kind of tackle, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's a mooring anchor and chain, and it's all the same stuff.
I think there is a provision that allows the harbor master to suspend the rules in
Right,
the
here it's
interest of public safety, or if it would create a hardship.
It's a federal government initiative.
Yeah, so it's a federal government initiative, and it's not to moor a vessel, so you can argue.
Good thought, though. That's a good thought.
Make a exception to the rule in this case.
It seems like maybe next week we should add that to get agreement from the commission that we're in support of.
Waive the ownership of
Well, that's your decision, but we should probably
we
support.
recommend that we waive the ownership. Yeah.
Right? Because you're right, we don't want to start undermining our own rules.
And then the other question, Brian, has to do with the 789 Harbor Road mooring. And you know, that was the subject of much discussion, including assertions by the attorney for the applicant that I think it's fair to say that not everybody agreed with. And the assertions were made in an effort to argue that the property owner we were obligated to give a permit to him. I say it's him because it was a him at the time. So I just think we should give some thought to it, and maybe we don't do it here, but we don't want to imply, I don't believe, that issuance of that permit
It's automatic in any way, automatic.
No, it is an acceptance of the arguments that were made by the attorney. Because the attorney was making arguments having to do with property rights. And if the assumption is that this person is being given a mooring because of those arguments, then you talked about opening a can of worms. The arguments can be used, I believe, as they apply to other properties too, or they could be applied to other properties.
Right.
So there was some discussion paper having to do with how to implement the policy of one dock and/or mooring, and then there was also a request to DEEP to clarify our understanding of what littoral rights mean. And then there was the response back from DEEP. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I think that's it, to figure it out,
Yes, I sent those to Brian, and I believe you listened to the meeting as well.
Yeah.
Because our approach to this, and the same as DEEP's approach, is that the right of access is not an absolute right that guarantees the property owner whatever the property owner wants to do, but it's a right of reasonable access, and it's subject to the public's rights. I just think we have to be careful about that. The permit for 789, that if the permit is granted, it's not an acknowledgement of the validity of the arguments that are made for the property owner.
And I talked offline with Jeff about that. I don't want to create precedent here. And as to your point exactly.
Jack.
What did I say, Jack?
Jeff.
I called you Jeff.
Yeah,
Jack. I'm sorry, Jeff. It's all the same, like first name.
A separate issue is all prior discussions around this topic all turned on an application for a center console shallow draft powerboat at that dock. And my understanding is the applicant has switched to a deeper keel, fairly deep keel sailboat.
Right.
So the decision about the suitability of the dock turns on the vessel that's currently being applied for, in addition to the issues that Jeff just raised.
I think that's part of the issue too, because in other towns, arguments are made by property owners new property owners, well, the dock isn't sufficient for the boat that I have now, and therefore I should be able to dredge. And that's not the littoral right is not a right of my understanding with DEEP and the way we've applied it, is not a right to accommodate a vessel of any size that the applicant wishes to use.
Right.
But anyway, that's something.
Right. But you're right, we should.
I think that has to be given thought, because there are other properties that don't have moorings, and they never have. If you agree to the assertion that every property owner has a right to a mooring, for example, then where do you accommodate the other property?
The other applicants,
The other applicants who come forth.
Right.
You accommodate them in the federal anchorage, and then you eliminate,
Yeah.
I just wanted to raise that point. Thank you.
If I have one question, if I can, for you, that just came up yesterday, as a matter of fact. One of the property owners of one of our furthest south moorings on the west side, past Yee Yacht Yard and the docks, the fishing docks there, was questioning the dredging. They read the presentation that came out, and I was going to tell them we don't expect that would ever be done during the boating season.
Oh, no,
it would be done after the
season.
season.
Do it during the boating.
And it would not affect his mooring at all, correct? It would be no worse than it is now. We're certainly not dumping sand there where he is now.
Is he on the town docks, or is he's along the?
Yeah, it's the Hinckley on the left side when you come in, that down, with the first on the left side coming into the channel.
On the left side?
The left side. So that really wouldn't affect, because we're not dredging the mooring.
No, we're
dredging the channel.
In the actual channel.
And dredging the channel won't affect.
It's removed, the material's removed.
It's removed, so it's not going to
Right.
anyway get into that area from dredging, correct?
Right.
It doesn't.
No. If anything, it might be improved.
That's what I was thinking, is it
Right.
moves, yeah.
Right.
That's why I just wanted to confirm with you that it's not.
There's no, as planned, it would not have any effect on
Okay.
anyone else except.
I didn't think so.
Any other comments on the Harbor Master's multi-pronged report?
Sorry.
The next item on our agenda actually relates to that whole conversation we were having about Fairfield Beach and Pine Creek. In the course of, this as background to this topic, in the course of interviewing our new harbor master, who's not new anymore, as we were looking at applicants for that, the subgroup that was assigned to seek harbor master applicants considered whether we should also be looking for a deputy harbor master. The reason we were thinking about that was chiefly because we worried that we didn't want to ever have a situation, particularly at this time of year when everybody's renewing their moorings and mooring permits are being issued, to have for some reason no harbor master in place. Because we had learned from the last gap we had last year that the commission can't really fill in for many of the important responsibilities for the harbor master, and we would be without the ability to issue permits, potentially for months, and that could create a real hardship. And so we decided that the best thing to do would be to have the conversation we're about to have once we had a harbor master in place who had an opportunity to learn a little bit about the role, who could weigh in and give a perspective about this. When we initially talked about it, we talked about the fact that the harbor master could have, if we had one, assign nothing to that deputy harbor master, just to be a person in waiting in case the harbor master were unavailable, or alternatively, the harbor master could assign certain functions to that person. In addition to that, upon publication of the agenda for tonight's meeting, a member of the public, who's actually on the call tonight, sent a note to me, and I shared with members of the committee, but thought it'd be good to open it up and let him speak to his own thoughts as a former harbor master for the town about the notion of having a deputy harbor master. So, Pat?
May I pose a question?
Please, sure.
Yeah, just relative to the process. So is it the process that the Harbor Management Commission submits recommendations to the governor?
Same old.
Correct.
Okay, so we submit the recommendation to the governor, and then the governor makes the
Right.
appointment.
And my purpose tonight would just to be for this committee around moorings to have a discussion about this, and then based on that, we can make a recommendation on this topic to next week's meeting for the full commission.
So would that hold true for the deputy harbor master as well? Same sort of thing, the committee would submit recommendations
Interview candidates.
and then
all
submit
of
that to the governor, and then the governor, okay.
Right. When we understood that that's what was going to be required, we decided we better wait and let the new harbor master be
Yeah.
part of that whole process.
So this dialogue or this conversation came up even prior to the harbor master being.
In the course of it, we
Oh,
sort of
got it.
how can
Nothing new.
How can
I'm
we?
not going anywhere. I didn't announce.
No.
Retirement.
This is
I'm enjoying
out of
it.
an abundance of caution, especially if that happened in the middle of summertime.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, and as a result of that, it wasn't as bad as it might have been. If it occurred at the beginning of the year,
Oh,
it
yeah.
would be really disastrous. So,
I can take my perspective, and I'm
well, I'm going to Pat.
Pat, thank you.
Your thoughts?
Pat, sorry, Pat. Pat?
Yes, I'm here.
So your thoughts on this concept of a deputy harbor master? I know you shared, but maybe if you wanted to just share anything with us while you're on the phone.
My only concern is that our harbor master is now harbor master for Fairfield. Is that right, Brian? You accepted that
It is.
rather than just harbor master for Southport?
Correct.
So my question then is, and it has been, where does Pine Creek fall into this whole picture? I've cited to Jack my thought that the eastern boundary line of the Harbor Management Commission's responsibility is somewhere in the area of Sunken Island and comes in a northerly direction. Pine Creek is included in that area, but Pine Creek, as of today, is not under the administration of the Harbor Management Commission. I'm just wondering if the harbor master now, who has authority throughout that entire area to South Benson, if the Harbor Management Commission assumes any responsibility now for Pine Creek, which falls in, at least in my opinion, within the Harbor Management Commission's jurisdiction. So if to play it out, maybe in a devil's advocate role, if that should happen, Pine Creek alone is a lot of work, and from listening to Brian the past half hour, he's been one busy man this past month, and I don't know that he would be in a position to take on any added responsibilities that would come within his realm of responsibility. So I would endorse. I think it's a great idea, even if Pine Creek was not included. That for a number of reasons, I think Deputy Harbor Master would fit in very nicely. Southport Harbor is becoming a very, very popular location, and the Harbor Master may want to take an extended vacation, and the deputy could step in and assume his responsibilities while he was gone, or Lord forbid he become ill. So I would endorse Jock's recommendation.
Others?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah? I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't have jurisdiction over South Benson, as Deeps explained it.
I didn't mean that, Brian.
No. I'm just,
I said to South Benson.
Yeah, no, I was just telling him. I know, Pat, you know that. I just want to make sure they knew that.
I understand that.
Because I talked to them. I said, what exactly is involved? And they said, well, honestly, we need moorings occasionally appear off of Fairfield. And you should be issuing someone should be issuing permits for those, and it should be the harbor master if we have one. We, the Deep, don't have the resources to go there and see how many moorings there are. And there's always a few offshore, we know. We don't have the resources or the boat, frankly, to go there and to look and see what's there and reach out, run the registrations and say, hey, you need a permit from the harbor master. You can't charge for it. Just tell us who you are, how do you get to your boat, and what do you have for tackle so it doesn't break off and drag. Just keep records like that. And if something happens, you know whose boat it is. Pine Creek, it would be not for docks. It would be for moorings if someone decides to put a mooring on Pine Creek outside their property. He said, as to docks, if you happen to notice someone building a dock, we'd appreciate a phone call to make sure we have a permit for it in case someone decides to build a dock without a permit. That's about it. I indicated that, in fact, the harbor master doesn't have a boat either, a large boat for these things. he said, well, you maybe want to call your police department and you can, have them Uber you over there periodically if you want to go for a ride.
Don't forget the Marine Patrol. They're more than willing to aid
Yep.
the harbor master and the commission.
Yep, and I spoke to them, and they offered, they said, absolutely, give us a call. We're not busy. We'll pick you up, and we'll go for a ride and do that.
So what are the kinds of things that would be jurisdiction of a harbor master in Pine Creek other than, because the police would be involved with
Well, it's
that?
an interesting discussion, because the harbor master has more authorities than just to issue a mooring permit.
Right.
The harbor master is responsible for safe and efficient operation of the harbor. And that of course entails a lot of different things. And also the harbor master has authority to station all vessels, including vessels at anchor. And with respect to safe and efficient operation of the harbor master's authority can be applied to remove abandoned vessels, remove other in water, or deal with in other words,
Right.
and the Marine Police, the police department can enforce state law.
Right.
So in other towns, the harbor master's orders can be then enforced by the police department if someone's not removing a vessel or is done. So with respect to docks, if it was thought that a construction of a dock was going to somehow interfere with safe and efficient operation of your jurisdiction, and the docks in Pine Creek have always been quite interesting to talk about, because Pine Creek is the tidal exchange between the wetlands that are upstream.
Right.
So there's always this concern about infringement on what's called the tidal prism, and the amount of tide water that can get up. And so there's a whole bunch of things the harbor master can do, and the harbor master's authority can be applied, but to the advantage of the public interest, but by the police department. So it's more than just
Right.
mooring permit.
Right, isn't that right?
Because you're a state official.
Correct. And I have
And you can give orders.
Right.
Like I said, he's a big deal.
The town code doesn't address those waters at all. It's all related to our stuff. I'm thinking about what's in the town code. It all relates to the Harbor Management Commission's authority within the harbor management area. So all of his activities would be based on state law.
On state authorization.
On state authorization, right, so I don't know, from what I've done so far, go ahead, I'm sorry.
One other,
Yes.
the town has had a dredging project in Ash Creek and they've done it several times. And it involves cutting into that sandbar that comes in, from the Bridgeport side.
Yep.
And there have been complaints that dredging, which is necessary to maintain the viability of the marina and boats coming in and out, is somehow adversely affecting the environment of Ash Creek. And that's quite an interesting discussion. Maybe you weren't involved with this recently, but your authority could be applied in that instance in arguments against the dredging project that the harbor master feels that project is necessary for the continued safe and efficient navigation of so you could get involved in issues like that as well.
So, if I may, so there's a movement too to do dredging in Pine Creek.
Yes.
If you're aware of that.
Pine Creek.
Yeah,
yes,
Pine
yes.
Creek, yeah. And so they've gone before the Shellfish Commission, but that doesn't come under the purview of the Harbor Management Commission, but the harbor master would weigh in. So I guess once it moves through those processes and those regulatory commissions, then it would come to you for your approval?
No. The harbor master doesn't have an approval authority over that, but the harbor master's opinion could be introduced into the regulatory process.
Right.
Either in favor of something like that or opposed to it.
Right.
So DEEP would have to give a permit for that.
And he works for DEEP.
The harbor
Report.
That is,
The governor appoints him, he reports through DEEP, doesn't he?
yes, but historically, as you know, the harbor master reported to the Commissioner of Transportation.
Correct.
And the oversight of the harbor masters was within the Department of Transportation. They had a Bureau of Aviation and Ports.
Mm-hmm.
And when the illustrious Connecticut Port Authority was formed some years ago, it eliminated the Maritime Division of the DOT, and the question was, where should the harbor masters go to? And it went to DEP.
Yeah.
But if from the commission's point of view, we were stuck last summer because we could do nothing in the harbor.
We were really hamstrung.
And from my point of view, that would be the reason to have somebody in the wings. Whether or not the harbor master wanted to assign the deputy harbor master any responsibility whatsoever, that's we would still look to the harbor master to report on all of his responsibilities.
Correct.
They would be the harbor master's responsibilities, and we wouldn't make the decision about which were going to be the deputies and which were going to be the harbor masters. But just in terms of keeping the harbor functioning in a safe and efficient manner, I mean, we were really skunked last summer.
It was an important learning for us to
It was.
understand how limited our
You can't just
authority is.
designate someone. That's,
The
Exactly.
state couldn't designate
The
somebody.
state would not.
they
do
can't,
that.
and nor could the harbor master.
Because we didn't go through a process, right?
Yes, and only the harbor master has the authority to issue the mooring permit.
Right.
Right.
But just as an example, it's not quite the same, but sort of, Brian mentioned the big bridge project in Norwalk. The Norwalk harbor master retired last December, but fortunately there is a deputy harbor master who is also a police officer. So he's assumed all of the, as the statute says, has all of the powers and duties and authorities of the harbor master until someone is appointed as the harbor master. So if there wasn't a deputy harbor master in Norwalk, it would be a real big problem now in terms of dealing with a big project that involves use of the harbor.
Right.
So I would say I don't need one for the workflow at this point, just so you know. And probably if you told me that Bill's my deputy, I wouldn't have him do any of what I'm doing because it probably takes longer to coordinate with someone, given this great, given online mooring, which is very nice. It's a great program to work with. It's probably easier. It's going to get much quieter now once I get my little stickers in and issue them. And it's more of a summer kind of putzing around and patrolling around and keeping an eye on stuff. So as long as you retain someone or appoint someone with the knowledge that, you may just be literally,
In name.
heartbeat away kind of thing, in name only. And maybe that's an idea, though, with a police officer, though, as a deputy, something to consider if someone in the department would apply for
Well,
it.
there's a precedent for doing that now. With the police officer had been appointed, and actually the harbor master in Norwalk was also a police officer, and he retired from the police department.
And Pat was.
Pat was retired from the police
He had retired.
department as well, right? So that might be something to think about as a way to do it. Then you have I don't want to say more access, because we have access to their vessels
Deep
already.
also made clear, though, that it couldn't be a member of the harbor commission because of the potential conflict.
Right.
They made it clear to me when first thing they said when I was appointed, they said, by the way, you don't have to answer to those people.
Right.
I said, why?
Is that what they really said?
I was a little surprised. I said, what, is that a problem in some communities? I mean, why would that, I would think it's a...
That's very interesting.
Because the state statute requires you to conduct your duties in a manner consistent with the harbor management plan. And the mooring rules and regulations are adopted by the harbor commission as pursuant to what the authorization provides
They should have
for the
told
harbor
me,
management plan.
I can't be told what to do by
That's
them,
right.
but clearly I have to follow, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have no,
Right.
That's where the rules-
that's all the, which are very useful in things like commercial fishermen and,
We can't
Right.
tell, I shouldn't say we, the commission can't tell you, don't issue this permit or
Right.
issue that permit.
right,
And we can't tell you what to do either.
correct.
But without you, we can't do much
Exactly.
when it comes to stationing boats and making decisions about
Right.
the harbor, especially when there are a lot of people in and out and up and down.
And also,
I agree with I was persuaded last summer that
Yeah.
we shouldn't put this town in a position again where, God forbid, something happens and there's
Most
no
towns have
harbor.
deputies, you would know, most towns.
Stonington does, I know, yeah.
we have a list of all the towns.
Yeah.
with
Just curious.
deputies.
And the ones who don't may never have considered this problem, but,
And
We
we
never
would have
did.
we
Right.
never would have considered it, but Jack and I were trying to do what we could do within the limits of our
people on there are
authority,
just
and it
trading
was-
moorings on,
Oh, I heard,
it's
I
all
heard
kinds
people
of crazy.
on the wrong moorings and vacant,
Right.
left there.
And that was in the quiet part of the year.
Yeah, so,
Okay, so it sounds like I'm feeling like we can report that the mooring committee, even if the person is just a heartbeat away and has no real responsibilities. And I think if we had somebody, if in the course of time you actually did want to assign them something, you could do that too.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
well,
Once I see how it goes, because I don't know what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah,
forever.
I mean, years from now, you could give that person some
Say, there
responsibility.
is a role.
Position doesn't exist, because it would be, so the same thing would be an appointment by the governor.
Yep.
correct.
And it doesn't exist as far as we're concerned, right? So.
Well, the person doesn't exist.
But even the role doesn't. Because
Well, there is
Oh,
the
there
provision in state law for there to be a deputy harbor master, we just never had one.
We just don't know about other, you said
Oh,
Stonington has it.
many other towns.
Yes.
Okay, they do.
Stonington does,
Yeah,
got it.
Norwalk, right, yeah.
Many do. And as Jack said, the statute says that the governor can appoint, the harbor master and a deputy harbor master for.
Okay.
But you're right, it's the same process.
And the state would pay for that deputy harbor master as well?
The amount of funds that are paid to the harbor master is a minor stipend, it's an annual stipend. But it's only measured in the hundreds of dollars.
The state pays me less than $1,000 a year.
A year.
Now, so any compensation that went to the the deputy harbor master would probably have to come from us, too.
No, deputies are eligible for compensation, or the stipend as well.
Right, but I mean, an
It would be from
additional.
the town, it would be from the harbor management account.
You'd have to create a budget request and,
Yeah.
No, it'd be in the harbor management account, I think we could actually do
Well, we probably could do
So
that,
the
too.
harbor master is paid by the state and the town?
it. In our town.
Right, so, but the compensation to the deputy would either have to come from the state or the town?
Or both,
Right.
or both, as it does,
Got it.
as it does now.
Got it. I
So-
mean, it would be good if it would take the work, but what you're saying is it would create more work for you, because it's another person you have to manage.
Right.
With tests, I mean, I get it, and so.
If he decided to delegate something to them.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I think our position is just having a body who is legally allowed to
Right.
approve mooring permit
On deck.
on deck is worth it, all by itself.
Even the commission did all of the administration of the mooring permit, there needed to be someone to say, issue the permit.
Right.
yeah, we don't need to be spending money on a person. It could just
Right.
be the title at
That's my
this
point,
point, I
exactly.
think, and then we'll
Right.
figure out, and then we,
Yeah, unless you needed it. If you needed it, you'd say you need it,
Right.
and it would be
Right.
worth the investment, but you're saying you don't need it, so why make the investment?
so far, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
conservative.
I would think that for a role that's a heartbeat away and that's it, no other responsibilities, I would think the state stipend and nothing else might be sufficient.
Oh, absolutely,
Right, it's just-
yeah.
absolutely.
It's just to cover us.
The
And,
paperwork you have to do to get the state stipend, I finally finished it, you have to.
well, and the paperwork that we have to do in order to get
I know, it's a lot of work.
candidates to the
It's a lot.
governor is not insignificant
Not
either.
really.
Right,
So,
so it'd be back at another
Public
subject.
Yeah,
side
that's-
interview, right?
Really, yeah.
This is an insurance policy, basically,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
town.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and once we have that role in place, maintaining somebody always in both roles will be
Sure.
important going forward.
But you could also talk to people who are interested in, if you felt that there was no one that was a suitable candidate, you don't have to submit a name.
Right.
Correct.
It would depend on finding someone that
Right.
would fit the.
Right.
I think we could find,
And I can give you ideas, or give people ideas as well, folks that I know who might be
right, no, well, we would
interested, and
rely on
that's
that.
what I'm talking about, that don't know about this.
We would post it and we would
And then say, hey,
rely
guys,
on, yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, there's something.
And the role could be interesting, actually, because the person would be able to come to our meetings, they wouldn't be able to vote, but they would have the opportunity to participate, be another voice at the table.
Yeah. Good.
Do other towns have the deputy come to meetings?
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, okay. Anything else on this? It sounds like we have I guess
No,
I
a
can.
graduate college student would be excellent, but I'm talking without thinking.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for today's meeting? Those were the items that we had on the agenda for today. All right. if
Mr.
not-
Chairman, if I may,
Yes,
I
sir.
have to sign off at 6:30, but would you permit me to make a couple of comments?
Please, we're just ready to wrap up.
Before you adjourn?
No, please do.
First of all, I didn't quite understand Brian if he said he was going to assign a mooring in the Helix area to a power vessel.
No,
No, I did.
I
did
know
not
in the
do that.
rule, I know that I have to give, I forget the exact, I'm going to paraphrase, consideration for the aesthetics and sight lines and views from Perry's Green in the harbor.
Thank you, Brian. You've made my point.
Yeah,
Secondly,
I don't plan on doing that.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm not the chairman. I apologize for that, but I understand now that you understand the way we feel about the Helix area at Perry Green. The other thing is Steve Galpin. I remember his applications coming in from, I think he lived in New Jersey for some umpteen years, stating that his dad, Steve Galpin, as you all probably know, had a very important role in the Pequot Yacht Club. Well respected and a great sailor. I would suspect that you're correct in your denying his renewal of his permit, waiting permit, but he certainly could file another waiting permit application if he chose to. Am I correct?
Yes, Pat, and I told him that. That's a good point. I told him that since you did not accept a mooring on the two opportunities when it was offered, and in fact, you just went off the list at that point and didn't go back on. Now you can certainly at any time go back on and start the process.
Of course.
Absolutely, if you wanted to.
And the other thing is, I know you, Brian, have been in that harbor long enough to determine whether a vessel is a commercial fishing vessel or a recreational vessel. And I'll leave it at that. And the other, lastly, I have a copy of the Shellfish agenda for their meeting, I think, which is tomorrow night. And under old business it is a discussion on proposal to dredge section of channel in Lower Pine Creek. So with that, I'll say amen, and thank you all for the work you're doing. You all get 5 stars. Good night now.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Appreciate your comments and wisdom, background.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.